Hello, and welcome to the launch of the Lake Winnipeg Writers Group Voices Journal. I'm Tiffany Prashera, the editor of the publication. It has been quite a time, to say the least, and so we decided to do something special by offering you a double issue of fun, inspiring, and thought-provoking works by our talented writers. It has truly been a group effort to put this publication together, and we hope you enjoy what we're presenting to you today. Now, the issue is split into two themes: the reality of dreams, and celebrating Manitoba's 150th. In fact, we held a Right on the Lake contest last year in honor of Manitoba's 150th birthday, where writers contributed pieces that celebrated life in our beautiful province. But before we get to the readings, here are some words of welcome from the president of the Lake Winnipeg Writers Group, Anne Timonin.
I'd like to welcome you here today to this most unusual launch of a Lake Winnipeg Writers Group Voices edition. We've just completed a year where nothing has been normal, and this has been a collaborative effort. I'd really like to thank Tiffany, Tyra, and Trinda for getting all this together so that we can enjoy a launch even though we cannot be physically in the same space. We really would prefer to be at McNally and see each other and applaud each other, but this is as good as it gets today. I would also like to give a shout out to the contest winners who are in this edition of Voices. You will be able to find the best poetry and the best prose, and see for the first time covers on the front and the back that were prize winners. I'd like to mention Larry Hayes, who is advertising his young adult novel, The Silver Veil. He has agreed to donate $5 for each book sold, and we'd like to formally thank him for that contribution to our coffers and to encourage people to buy the book and to enjoy what he has written. I'd like to encourage our writers to continue to imagine new ways of telling us about the world or the world that they imagine, and to share those with us. We are preparing to publish in 2021, and perhaps we will even be able to get together to do that. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Anne, and thank you for all you do for the group. Our first reader today is Tanya Stephenson, a longtime member of the Lake Winnipeg Writers Group, with her second place win for the fiction category of the Right on the Lake contest. I'll let her introduce herself as she shares a sneak peek of her piece, Red River Man.
Hello there, my name is Tanya Stephenson, and I have been publishing with the Lake Winnipeg Writers Group Voices books for multiple years. You might recognize some of my more recent works, including the 300 Man series, and I've also published other short stories and poetry in the Voices books as well. I would like to thank the Lake Winnipeg Writers Group for awarding me with second place in the fiction department for my story, Red River Man. Today I am going to read you a part of the Red River Man. It's quiet, peaceful. Stars fill the sky and treetops rustle in the breeze. All day I've waited for this run. No customer calls or meetings, no social media distractions. Katie would be furious if she knew her little sister runs alone in the middle of the night. I run up the slope and continue over the Selkirk Bridge. Male voices chuckle on the other side. Oh great, drunks. Bars are closed and out comes the crazies. I stop to catch my breath. 5 men enter the walkway on the other side of the bridge. Crap! If I wasn't alone, I'd keep going. I head in the opposite direction and veer off the road, following the path alongside the Red River. Men's laughter carries over the water. This wasn't in my plan, but it's not worth the risk heading back until they're gone. Shadows from the trees tower over me, hiding the path, and I am enveloped in darkness. I trip over something and fall forward and smack my head on a hard object. Pain sears through my skull. Damn! I sit up and touch my head to find warm liquid. Blood. Now what? I crawl towards the moonlit river, but my ankle throbs, so I stop. I left my phone at home. I can't just stay here. Tears trickle down my cheeks. No one knows where I am. I have to keep moving. I crawl in the Red River's direction and avoid any pressure on my right foot. Under the moonlight, I stop. Grass sticks to my bare knees. Mud blotches my hands. The men are no longer on the bridge. If I call for help, no one will hear me. Movement in the water startles me. A human head emerges. A man stares out at me. Am I dreaming? There was no one here a second ago. The man scans the area, as though to make sure no one else sees him, then continues out of the Red River. His skin shines and sparkles. Are those scales? Wow, he's tall, muscular. As he nears, the scent of catfish surrounds me. And that's all I'm going to read for today. If you're interested in reading the rest of The Red River Man, please pick up your copy of Voices. Thanks so much for joining us and have a great day.
That was great, Tanya. What a way to start off. Now our next writer, Shannon Greer, crunches numbers all day and later does creative things like write and draw to feed the right side of her brain. She has also been a barista, a bookseller, a computer fixer, a doula, an elevator hostess, a nanny, an optician, a picker of raspberries, and a school bus driver. She loves yoga, cooking gumbo, and tending plants both inside and out of doors. She is the mother to Maddie, who is 11. With Bert, they live on a small piece of country in Manitoba with a turtle, 2 cats, 2 dogs, 3 ducks, 4 geese, 5 rabbits, and a coop of chickens. This is her first published story. Now, with her first place win in the fiction category of our Right on the Lake contest, here is the multifaceted and the very busy Shannon Greer, reading from the Cottagers Drama.
The Cottagers Drama by Shannon Greer. On her way home, she stops at the little grocery store beside the train tracks and heads in to pick up some sausages for supper. At the turn of the century, one of the national rail companies purchased lakeside lots here for their employees and created a resort area. Decades later, in the 50s, fathers took the daddy train out from the big city on Friday, and the midnight special brought young couples up for fun and romance on the boardwalk. Now the line is occasionally used to transport whiskey, but most of the time it lies idle. As she returns to the car, movement on the tracks catches her eye. A man rises from his seat on the rails, his focus on her. "Hi there," he calls out, waving at her. She finds herself rooted to the spot, incapable of flight. Instead, she reaches for the knife in her bag and grabs her phone from her pocket as he starts to walk over. "I won't hurt you," he reassures her as he gets closer, his hands held up in surrender. "But I need to talk to you. You saw what happened, right?" She holds up the phone as he reaches her car. "I have typed 911 in and just need to hit send," she threatens. "And how did you find me?" she asks angrily. "I watched you. You walked to your car at the carnival." He seems to have trouble getting his thoughts out. She thinks it is possible this is the first time he has spoken in weeks. "I've waited to speak with you. You're the only one who saw the fight." He carefully places his hands on the roof of her car and looks intently at her. "Can I explain?" "You want to explain pulling a knife during a fist fight and killing a man?" she asks, incredulous. "Why explain to me and not to the police?" He looks apologetic. "I owe you an explanation first. Then I turn myself in." His look now asks permission. She shrugs indifferently. The relief on his face is clear. "That afternoon, I'd wandered into town after spending the morning at my parents' place. They're in Europe, and suggested I open the cottage and spend the summer here writing my book," he explains, his thoughts seeming to flow more smoothly now, like water rushing from a punctured dam. "I got into town the night before, and I've been cleaning up the mouse debris and airing the place out. By early afternoon, I needed a walk and a beer. In the hotel bar on the main drag, I grabbed a drink and headed out to the patio.
Thank you so much, Shannon. Now for some poetry. Karen Voigt grew up in Manitoba and has spent most of her summers at her family's cottage on Lake Winnipeg, drawing inspiration from all the amazing creatures and biosystems that are at home in the ancient lake basin. She has taken many creative writing courses and workshops and won an award for a short story at the University of Winnipeg. Karen is now focusing primarily on poetry and works by day as a social worker, enjoying Zumba, guitar, piano, and quirky Netflix shows in the evening. Without further ado, here's Karen Voigt with Vandals.
Vandals. Beavers are natural vandals, says my love, the biologist, as we watch the silent swim of the Castor canadensis. He moves slowly down the murky creek, long leafy branches and teeth, framed by the partly felled trees and emerging lodge, unaware that what he takes and how offends in this cottage vale. I am a vandal then too, I announce, as I will pillage, sink in my teeth and gnaw until the job is done.
That was great, Karen. Thank you. H. Roegraters, aka Helma Roegraters, was born in North Germany near the brook Elster, a tributary of the mighty river Elbe. She spent her formative years in the hamlet of Wellingsbüttel, a community hailing back to the Bronze Age. For 5 years, she traveled through several independent African countries, during which she homeschooled her 3 sons and broadened her own education. Now Helma resides in the Manitoba Interlake between 2 inland oceans, creating within her fine art studio in the lee of the prevailing lake gusts. Labeled a garden variety philosopher by her middle son, she is also an enthusiastic coddywampler. She lives to create, write, and is proud to be in print with the Lake Winnipeg Writers Group journal, Voices. And we're proud to have her. A longtime member of the Lake Winnipeg Writers Group, Helma wanted to share a couple of pieces with you today. So here is H. Roegraters with her honorable mention awarded poem from the Write on the Lake contest, Through the Bay Window, and her theatrical review, Dear Editor.
Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm happy to see this big crowd. And, well, virtually. That's really what we're doing this year. One of my newest poems is in print in this edition, and you have a chance to buy it later because it's a beautiful edition. This title is Through the Bay Window. Now, my windows are very important in my home. There are some walls, I have artwork on it, as you can see, but mostly windows. So I'm now concentrating on the windows. So I'm going to start again, Through the Bay Window. Frost beads edge leaves. The basswoods still a green screen. Only days ago, summer. Ash looms over dogwood's deep red stems, and honeysuckle's dark green foliage, curved like the carapace of turtle. The sentinel's crown bare, an Überbroom for giants. Thanks. Now, I also had a chance at some point to write a review of theater piece, a play. The Aspire Theater in Gimli it's an amazing repertory theater. It's been around for 30 years or even more. So I went to see the production of Blithe Spirit by Noel Coward, and I just had to sit down and write a review, thinking I might get it published in the local paper, but it was after the fact. So, but it's published now in this edition. So this was my letter to the editor, and it's edited, and it's called Sheer Joy, Blithe Spirits. The production of June 2017 in Gimli. Imagine that in this hinterland there can be moments of sheer joy generated by an amateur production of Noel Coward's Blithe Spirit. I'm talking of the valiant production mounted by local director and cast of the Aspire Theatre in Gimli. I went to the matinee, and my gosh, how I was transported back to the days of my youth, when my older sister and me would take in matinees at the Royal Windsor Repertory Theatre at Windsor Castle. And I go on. Carrying the night was the idiosyncratic performance of Madame Arcady, played by Linda Arneson. She is masquerading as a high-born and well-bred. Miss Arneson was a natural for that sort of bravado. Kudos. Madame Arcady, a clairvoyant, to her own surprise, conjures up Elvira's ghost at the séance. Elvira's ghost keeps disrupting Charles's marriage to his second wife, Ruth, who of course cannot see her, the ghost. Ruth believes Charles has gone mad. Madame Arcady is invited back to persuade Elvira, the ghost, to give up her ghosting. An ideal storyline for some misunderstanding and resulting in hilarity. I thoroughly enjoyed the final act's noisy going-ons, the loud banging against the walls, the candelabra precariously shaking to and fro, furniture toppling, books falling from shelves, the lovely quiet home invaded by boisterous and vindictive spirits. Ruth is ready to commit Charles, so she tries to push him over the brink and does a ghost number herself on poor Charles to speed up his exodus from his now forever haunted house. While ghost Elvira, who is still roaming the neighborhood, returns to cause mayhem too. Charles exits. Thanks to director Bill Morrison for putting on this ambitious play. Bravo, Aspire players. Bang on for the start of the summer season. By the look of this production, the lineup of the summer seasons is worth a trip to Gimli by the shores of Lake Winnipeg. Cheers. Thank you. And that's it for this issue. And I, again, thank you for viewing us in space.
Thank you so much, Helma, and I will second that sentiment. Thank you to all of you for joining us for this launch, wherever in the universe you may be tuning in from. Now, our next writer is one of our newer members, but he is no stranger to writing. Ron Romanowski is a poet and writer based in Winnipeg and Grand Marais, Manitoba. Ron's best-selling 8th book of poetry, If 3,000 Strikers March Today, was published in 2019 to mark the 100th anniversary of the Winnipeg General Strike. He has over 500 poems, short stories, reviews, and articles in print. Recently, his work has appeared in the 2020 Winnipeg Free Press, Rites of Spring, the International Selkie Resiliency Anthology, Winnipeg's Right to Move Anthology, the Solemn Literary Journal, Bluing the Blade Literary Journal, the Passenger's Journal, Eternal Haunted Summer, the Winter Solstice edition. Other publications include poems in Mosaic Village, an illustrated history of the North End, and Silver Screens on the Prairie, both by historian Ross Gerlach, and an award-winning poem in the CV2 Literary Journal. Ron has been heard in story and poem on regional and national CBC radio. His hundreds of readings and videos over the last 30 years have included Italian, Polish, and Mexican poetry, music, and reading events. Now, here's the first place winner of the poetry category of the Right on the Lake contest, Ron Romanowski, with Weeding My Garden at Grand Marais. Why can't I see the pastoral visions of the great European poets?
Weeding my garden at Grand Marais. Why can't I see the pastoral visions of the great European poets? This dew-soaked morning, I can't seem to connect with the pastoral aristocracy of poets. Weeding my garden, I can't feel their community, their intimate confederacy, the cosmic unity. These days, we're in the pit of a viral pandemic catastrophe that has made anxious even the normal fret of gardening. But in all the 100 years of gardens here, this plot always blooms weeds best. Here, where once the forest and marsh had their version of perfection, my soil-enshrouded hands argue with the pulling and strangulation. Because I'm down on my knees in worship to an alien idea of garden that this morning strikes me as inarguably strange. Weeds are only plants in the wrong place. Plants are only weeds in the right place. And I so wish to be in the wrong this morning, all wrong. I'm at nose level with dandelions, getting right down to creeping Charlie, eye to eye with shepherd's purse, not Rilke's regal roses airily near, the iambic estates of English daffodils, the zealous cornflowers of Bohemian poets, nor the shimmering wheat for 100 hectares in Pushkin's mind. Shall I rapturously gaze upon a leaf of crabgrass, crib something from Walt Whitman in the telling? Walt's generous surfaces of multitudes are not enough today, perhaps will now never be enough. Like my soil-stained hands, into this loamy concoction of life and death. Below the weeds, mushrooms or uranium. I want to get right down to the bones, the unknown conscripts of our pandemic dead. Every citizen has always been a combatant in viral warfare. No one may be spared by chance or administrative stupidity. We are kept away because of an invisible danger. We bereaved could not perform our rites, sacred or profane, and there is no term for our destitution. I don't care if anyone sees me in this state. Just let me dig until my nails are raw, here in our longtime family garden and childhood animal graveyard. Canaries we interred in shoeboxes, others white mice, and that dear dog I can barely remember. How I want to touch a bone of what I once fed, sang with, played hide and seek with. In these impersonally distanced times, we cannot be with you when you die. Let melancholy ride me as I purposefully heave the earth. I turn my sorrows into mourning by hand, with memories beneath the weeding. Gnarled hands on dandelion hide, my hands that churn the soil, that is a broken horizon in miniature. And that is what to look forward to, the return to the broken. The size of my solipsistic grief, the size of the fear in society. Down and out like the warm soil caking my fingers. Poet mortician who seeks to be poet coroner. I turn my anxiety into mourning by hand, with memories beneath the weeding, the weeds which I shall keep and name as bouquets of sympathy. Elbow ache, the promise, sore back, the sacrifice, some mild sunburn as the calming quotidian. And when the morning is done, I believe that I will deserve generosity from an exact noon of reason. For my weedy effort, let order be somewhat reversed, muddied, therapeutically toppled, even a little. This morning soil might then have been moistened with a few pastoral tears.
That was great, Ron. Thank you so much. Another one of our seasoned writers, Debbie Oakenhall, grew up in rural Manitoba, was a former typesetter and reporter with the Regional News, and a former communications specialist with the Winnipeg Art Gallery. She is a member of the League of Canadian Poets and the Writers' Union of Canada, with over 430 poems published in such literary journals as Descant, Existere, Tamaracks, the Literary Review of Canada, the Windsor Review, Vallum, and earlier issues of Voices. Tarnished Trophies, published by Black Moss Press in 2014, is her first trade book. Today she gardens words full-time in rural southwestern Ontario. Follow her literary journey on Kites Without Strings. Now, here is Debbie with her poem, Insulated.
Insulated by Debbie Oakenhall. She will find it warm here, deep in this thermos tower, her safe haven, a heated space, away from outside danger, where imaginary avalanches fling ice daggers beneath her foundation, where bats and bold rats snarl and gnarl lace edgings of her pillowcase dreams. There is no need to run, to cower in shadowed corners of her derelict building. Overnight, she wrapped herself in fiberglass, puffy and pink, lined herself against those inner fears, undercutting her pine frame. She is protected now from harsh sounds and blasted winds, her down-filled jacket, earmuffs, and wool mittens well insulated. Loud voices, hammering nails, no longer banging at her door.
That was wonderful, Debbie. Thank you. Now I suppose it's time for me to read a little something for you today. What did I say about myself? Tiffany Prashera is a writer, composer, voice artist, and radio personality from Winnipeg, Manitoba. With a mission to inspire and enlighten through words and music, she has published children's stories, a collection of poetry and prose, and has released pop and children's albums, a musical for young audiences, and a catalog of sheet music through Swimming Tigress Music and Swimming Tigress Press. Now, here's the beginning of 5 years later. The sun shone through the bay window, radiating light and warmth throughout the spacious but cozy bedroom. Tamara's eyes remained closed as Latte hopped on the bed and sat on her chest, already purring. She reached out to dig her fingers into the Persian's thick white fur and sighed with satisfaction. Joel turned over and smiled. "Mornin', babe," he yawned as he reached over to move a rogue lock of hair from her face. Latte offering his fingers a light lick. "Did you sleep all right?" "Not bad, but I was still running over the rehearsal in my mind." "You're going to be great. When is everyone showing up?" "Renata and Mo are coming at 10, hair and makeup at noon, I think." Mocha jumped on the other side of the bed. The Fur children loved both of their parents, but they still maintained their loyalties, though the couple had been living together for the past 2 years. Joel nuzzled the Himalayan's soft black nose. "You know, when we get married, the girls should carry the rings down the aisle. That would be awesome." Tamara giggled. "Could we ever get them to follow directions?" She ruffled Latte's fur behind the ears. "You would just go running around everywhere, wouldn't you, Tay-Tay?" Joel laughed. "We still have a few more months. We can start training him now." He deftly moved his hands under Mocha's body so he could shift her into the middle of the bed, and sat up. "Breakfast," he suggested. "Dare I ask for eggs, Benny? I've been so good making sure I'd still be able to fit into my dress. I deserve your hollandaise." He leaned over and kissed his bride-to-be on the forehead. "1 eggs, Benny, coming up for the Academy Award nominee and soon-to-be Academy Award winner." "Yay, that's me!" Tamara cheered, playfully holding up her hands. Latte softly mewed at the disruption. Sorry, Tay-Tay, go back to sleep. Being the foodie that she was, she couldn't imagine her good fortune when she discovered the love of her life would turn out to be an award-winning chef. Joel stood up and put on the jeans that were on a chair by the bed. Tamara adjusted herself into a seated position, doing her best not to disturb her fur child that was already fast asleep. You know, there's no guarantee I'm actually going to win. She was about to add that she was, in fact, rather used to the disappointment and had no expectation of victory, but thought it better not to drag down the moment. I know it's cheesy and everyone says it, but just being nominated is almost more excitement than I can handle. But you do have a speech prepared for when you win, right? Oh, of course. I wouldn't trust myself to improv. She bit her lip. And I might get a little real. I just wanted you to know that. I hope you're not embarrassed. He took her by the chin. Tamara, I am more proud of you right now than I've ever been of anyone in my life, including myself. You could never, in a million years, embarrass me. Not even if I were to burst out singing Bohemian Rhapsody like I did on our first date, but in front of thousands of people in the theater and millions of the viewing public? Joel recalled his amusement watching his date trying to decide which part of the multi-voice song to sing during her performance at the Blue Kahuna karaoke bar and chuckled. That was hilarious, but no, not even then, he assured her. Anne Timonen, current president of the Lake Winnipeg Writers Group, is fond of writing and often experiments with new styles and challenges. Her favorite category for both reading and writing is mystery, but she often finds good material in creative nonfiction where the vagaries of everyday life can be used to tell an amusing tale. For our final reading, here is our president, Anne Timonen, with a poem, Take a Viking Voyage.
This poem was written for the Gimli Poetry Contest 2 years ago. The theme was Take a Viking Voyage, and I chose to make it full of every cliche you have heard of, or maybe not heard of, about Vikings, using an Old English form of poetry where there's a line down the middle called a censura, which divides one half from the other. So here it is. Take a Viking voyage. Carve through the waves with dragon bow, over Swan's Way, brave explorers. New lands await towards sunset. Lush green meadows, skraeling fighters, fresh adventures, not just exile. If we return, they will feast us with bread and meat, mead and laughter, into the light for sparrows' flight, yet in bard's song for evermore. And if you die, we'll burn the ship, send you onward to Valhalla, honor intact, Viking voyages.
That was wonderful, Anne, and I love how our writers are interested in exploring new horizons and new ways of doing things, so that's a really creative approach in that poem when you see it visually as well. Well, before we close, I would like to thank the members of the Writers Group, our layout persons Tyra Masters-Heinrichs and Brendan Tarrick, all of those who participated in our virtual proofreading. Believe me, it was a learning curve to figure out how to do things from our homes this year, but we did it. And Anne, our president, and the rest of the Writers Group executive. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the offerings of our amazing writers at the Lake Winnipeg Writers Group. And I certainly hope you are itching to get your hands on a copy of this issue of the Voices Journal. Unlike previous issues, this edition of Voices is available strictly in digital format for download. You can visit our website at www.lwwg.ca for more information on how to get your copy. And if you are a writer interested in joining the group, you'll find everything you need there as well. Thanks again for joining us, and have a wonderful day.